This is Henry Frederick, and I'm here today with Sheriff-elect Dennis Lemma.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You just got, qualifying was over and you had no opponent, and you're the next sheriff. How's it feel?
I got to tell you, we're extremely excited. I'm humbled by all of the support, both internally and with the community, and we're ready to move forward. We're ready to do some exciting things.
Now, you're a young fellow, 44.
I am.
You've been here quite a while at the
Yeah,
sheriff's office.
24 years, nearly my entire adult life here at the sheriff's office. And one of the interesting things about me is I had the opportunity to ascend the ranks here. I worked in corrections, worked in road patrol investigations, and then ascended every ranking position within our hierarchy.
You've done a lot with children.
Oh, absolutely.
Children's services.
I was an investigator for crimes against children. I was a school resource deputy, both at a high school and middle school. I was the person who proposed and the original senior drill instructor of our juvenile boot camp program at one time, which was converted to a consequence alternative type of parenting class and mentorship program. So, youth, I've always looked at as one of our more vulnerable populations, and I've always wanted to do whatever I could to make a difference in their lives.
Now, what's it like following the footsteps of a legend? Don Essinger, 20-something years as sheriff, second longest in the state of Florida.
Right. I got to tell you, it's all that I know, and I will say that I am here because of his mentorship, guidance, and wisdom. I'm absolutely convinced that one of the reasons why I made the decision to run for sheriff is after he had a conversation with me, Sheriff Esslinger, and he said, I think I'm going to retire, and asked me if I would be interested in running for sheriff. And I told him that I absolutely would be. The ideal situation for me is to continue to work for Sheriff Esslinger for my entire career. But if that's not possible, I am absolutely prepared to carry on the good work that we do. But more importantly, why we do it. And that's one of the things that I tell people oftentimes is they say, will things change? Well, the platform and philosophy of enhancing quality of life by reducing crime and the fear of crime will not change. But the practices and how we go about that will always change. It's one of the reasons why we have stayed ahead of the criminal element. It's the reason why that the day after 9/11, law enforcement across this country changed, because we have to meet the expectations of today and plan for what lingers around the corner tomorrow. So as I tell people, it will change as the needs and expectations change. But what will not change is the reason why we do it. The empathy, the altruism, the sincere sense of giving back to our community. It is a humbling feeling to provide direct service and care for the safety of our community, and I work with the best men and women in the business in order to accomplish that.
Let me ask you this. We'll get into the crime stuff in the second segment, but in terms of this opening segment, it seems like the politics in Seminole County are not overdrawn like you see in surrounding counties. You've had a number of high-profile offices where people have either run unopposed or had candidates that weren't really a threat to them. What does that say about the quality of life here in Seminole County, not just in law enforcement, but being a family man? I guess your wife works at the sheriff's office. She's in the court services or something?
She's in the court services. We met here more than 20 years ago and have had blessed careers here serving the people.
But what does that say politically about Seminole County as a whole, in terms of it's peaceful, it seems to be homogenous? And how does that help you? How did that help you with your campaign for sheriff?
Well, I tell you, one of the greatest things is the enhanced quality of life that people have here in Seminole County. Whether it's our public safety with crime being at historic lows here in Seminole County, whether it's our wonderful school system and partnerships, but what it is, it's in embracing a philosophy of collaboration. We have in Seminole County a group of long-standing elected officials and community leaders. And the benefit of that is allowing all of us to establish lasting relationships that have some substance and depth, where we come together to collaborate on a variety of issues, not just crime fighting, but ways we can enhance the quality of life. We've got police chiefs here and police departments that that I think that are as good as anywhere you'll find.
You have
in
an
the
airport
country.
authority,
We have an
chief,
airport authority and
the Sanford Airport.
yeah, so we come together pretty frequently to talk about, even with these meetings, we have these conference rooms and command staff meetings, but we always do that with the mindset of, if the public was looking through the windows right now, would they be proud of what they see and what we're advocating for? And in Seminole County, I think that the record speaks for itself with the enhanced quality of life. We have a thriving economy. We have one of the best school systems in the state. Crime is at historic lows. We have a lot going on here, and it's just a wonderful place to raise a family.
And you have what?
I
Two
have
children
two
yourself?
boys that attend Seminole County Public Schools. We live in Oviedo. I'm just absolutely honored to live here, to have the opportunity to raise my family here, and to serve the people for 24 years.
When did Sheriff Essinger let you know that, hey, you're ready, let's do it, I'm gonna be stepping down?
Well, what happened with this is he had a conversation with me several years ago when he made the decision that this was going to be his last term.
Okay.
He made the decision that he was not going to seek re-election and had a conversation with me. At that point in time, I had already been assigned as the chief deputy, which within our organizational structure is the chief operating officer. So all of the components of the sheriff's office, from corrections to the financial responsibility to the enforcement and investigative arms to forensics, all reported through me for daily leadership, which provided a great learning opportunity because I intimately know the in and outs of this office. It's almost like if somebody came to your home and said, give me a tour of your house and tell me what the layout is the way I feel about this organization. I'm running on the record that I helped create here over 24 years. So when people ask me, what do you do and why do you do it, and can you tell me the historical perspective when you implemented this program, I can do that because I was there. I was a part of that.
In the last question for this opening segment, you seem really confident, secure in your standing, your place as Don Essinger's protege.
Right.
That must be a good feeling for you moving forward. I guess you start, what, in January of 2017?
I do start in January for a 4-year term at that time, and I'm absolutely ready for this. One of the things that great leaders do is to ensure that they have a succession plan. And Sheriff Essinger did that early on, not for him, and quite honestly not for me, but the citizens of this community that deserve and have been accustomed to the highest quality law enforcement services that are available. There will be a smooth transition come January. The principles and the platform that we stand on will remain, and that's one of the things that I have pledged throughout my campaign.
Now, even in the last couple of days, and we'll wrap this up, you've been meeting individually. Your goal is to meet with every single employee?
Every employee within the organization, and that's a practice that I participated in quarterly. I go out and meet, but I'm going now and meeting with all staff again to explain to them the vision for the future, to comfort them to know that we will stabilize out and not to expect large organizational changes. There are some changes because of retirement and realigning. We made a reorganization just after qualifying, but there is no planned large-scale reorganization between now and the transition of the seat come January. So, look, the people on the front lines, I've always maintained that the people closest to the problems in a community are the best suited individuals to develop solutions to correct those problems. It first starts with the citizens living within those neighborhoods and community, followed in a close second in the mindset of community policing by those men and women that wear uniform, that are a part of our organization, that are embedded and a part of those communities. We do things a little bit differently here. We assign deputy sheriffs to work in the areas closest to where they reside because we know that they can pick up and embrace that concept of community policing and know the challenges and problems within their area of responsibility. Not just the crime problems, but quality of life issues as well.
Well, we'll get into the crime problems in the second segment. For Deputy Sheriff Lemma. This is Henry Frederick. We'll be back shortly.
Thank you.
That's good. This is Henry Frederick for Headline Surfing. We're back with our second and concluding segment with Sheriff-elect Dennis Lemma.
Thank you, Henry.
Sheriff-elect Lemma, you wax poetic about, the tradition and the heritage of the Seminole County Sheriff's Office and your stake in it with Don Essinger, the longtime sheriff, and you're a protege of his, and you now have the honor of being the sheriff-elect. Seminole County is, I think it's universally known in Central Florida, is probably the safest, the cleanest, and the nicest of Orange County, Seminole County, Volusia County as a whole, with a mix of retail and commercial and residential taxes and that kind of thing. So you have the, not the luxury, but you have the basics for law enforcement, is that correct? For what your needs are?
I mean, we're very proud of our community and how we've come together, and quite honestly, the services that we provide to our citizens. They expect and deserve that, and I think that the record speaks for itself. We've got a great school system. The economy is doing extremely well, and people really have a sense of safety and security within our community. But like any other community, you have some challenges and problems that come up time to time, and that's why we have to work so hard to prepare for what lingers around the corner tomorrow, and have close working relationships with our neighboring jurisdictions, specifically any contiguous county to Seminole County, Orange County, Volusia, Lake, and Brevard.
Now, just briefly, following the national statistics on crime rates, they've gone down considerably, probably a lot more so in Seminole County than the national average since the mid-'70s. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, we're extremely impressed about it. If you think about it, over the past 40 years, in Seminole County, the population has increased by over 200% in the past 40 years. During that time also, and specifically in the past 20 years, you had the World Wide Web, which created a whole new way for people to victimize.
Right.
But if you think about these numbers, the Part 1 crime, which are those categories of crime that have been determined and tracked by the FBI.
The violent crimes, murder, rape, robbery, assault.
Well, they're not all violent crimes. They're murder, rape, robbery, assault, but then you have larceny,
right.
you have
stolen
some
vehicles.
others in there, stolen vehicles. The index crime rate in the past 40 years has decreased by 73%. 73%.
In Seminole County.
In Seminole County. And if you think about a number that is more revealing than that, the crime in 1975, the volume of crime in 1975, which is the raw number of criminal incidents that were reported, was 17% higher in 1975 than they are in 2015. Now, people who are alarmed by that number say, how can that be? Well, one of the reasons why is we are much more transparent now than we were 40 years ago. If something happened in this building right now, 2, 6, 9, 35, 13, and a variety of newspaper reporters will be outside of this building within 15 minutes, probably receiving some update from me. And 40 years ago, you would have to know somebody in the business or somebody within the sheriff's office or police department to gather that information. But I will tell you, although we are tracking historic lows in reported crime, I will tell you that's not good enough. Criminologists suggest that the crime that occurs in our community is actually a fraction of the crime that occurs. And people who are doubtful of that for one moment can think about the amount of domestic violence that occurs in our community that is still yet undetected and unnoticed. Or the amount of child neglect, abuse, or abandonment that nobody knows about.
And the underlying factors, mental illness, job insecurity, poverty issues, unemployment.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we are
Societal
absolutely
ills.
convinced that crime and delinquent behavior is a symptom of another problem. And we, as a law or a public safety organization, have to focus on those underlying causations that lead to criminal and delinquent behavior if we're going to be successful.
And it goes without saying it. I think you'd be the first to admit it's been kind of a weird year so far. In 2016, you had the mass shooting at the Pulse. I guess you were involved in that.
Horrible tragedy.
You had just recently the mayor of Sanford, Jeff Triplett, was carjacked. And I'd like you to speak a little bit about probably what Don Essinger, your sheriff, said was probably the most horrific domestic he's come across, was this guy Henry Brown out of Altamont Springs, I guess, who tried to kill his wife at a restaurant in Lake Marion and went to the hospital, tried to get her, and engaged in a gun battle with your deputies and Sanford police, and then on the interstate killed his 2 kids and then himself. How could you, I know you like to be proactive, but in crimes like that, it's tough, isn't it? Even when the courts are involved, which they were in this.
Well, it's tough in a variety of regards. You know, you look at situations like this, these horrific situations, and you ask yourself, you know, what can we do to identify early on? And mental health is one of the processes of what we have to look at. You know, in my 24 years career, and as Sheriff Esslinger has already identified in his 38-year career, we have never seen somebody so determined as this particular individual. The rage, you know, you knew the situation at the Chili's restaurant where he
Right.
runs her over, as well
And
as
2
the
other people.
caregivers
Yeah.
that are there on the side of the road. He does internet searches to try to find what hospital she's taken to, makes telephone calls to 911 and emergency management using an alias as a concerned relative of hers, and then actually enters into the hospital. We were lucky to have deputy sheriffs and Sanford police officers that acted heroically in that particular situation. I'm convinced saved lives there. The sheriff and myself, I mean, we were out on that scene, and it's just a horrible
With that
terrible
shootout,
tragedy.
with that shootout there at the hospital, as brief as it was, would you say that's causation? That's the epitome of when you would use deadly force, take someone like that out. I mean, he's got a shotgun, he's got a handgun, he's already shown violence. At that point, you're probably recognizing this is the same guy. He managed to get away and killed his kids. It's unfortunate, but
Oh yeah, I mean, there's, you know, our deputies, and quite honestly, our police community, whether they're a deputy sheriff or work with one of the partnering police departments, they're trained for situations like this. The way we trained law enforcement officers now is really different than what we trained 15, 20 years ago. We provide things like active shooter training, which immediately identifies the threat and then goes and engages the bad person. In this particular situation, there wasn't a shotgun there, but there was a handgun that was used. The deputies then, in some cases, leaving cover.
I think that was one of the initial reports, that there
Yeah,
was
leaving
a
cover,
shotgun.
putting themselves potentially in harm's way. But this is what they raised their hand and took an oath to do. We wish the outcome was much different than what it was in this situation. But we move forward and we do what we can do to protect all of our citizens, regardless of where they live and who they are. But it's troubling to see the amount of mental illness that undiagnosed and untreated, and what those results can be.
Are your deputies trained when they come across people that are violent, agitated?
Oh, sure.
To recognize the Baker Act,
Yeah,
the
we were-
forced putting them in a psychiatric facility for at
Yeah,
least
we were one of the first
couple days.
organizations in the state, if not the country, to ensure that all of our employees receive what's called CIT training, to early diagnosis of mental health and mental health reform, and we actually facilitate that training, not only for law enforcement officers, but all first responders and public safety folks. You probably know that Sheriff Esslinger has been instrumental in statewide reform, mental
Right.
health reform. Has been to Washington, D.C., advocating for change. You know, our correctional facilities are not suited as mental health facilities. We do the best we can with doctors that we employ at the correctional facility. But you know, early treatment of mental health and identification is really making a difference in our community, and we need to continue to drive in that direction.
Where do you stand briefly in terms of like the Second Amendment and open carry,
Yeah.
or the idea of concealed? I mean, someone says, if somebody had a gun, they could have taken out the guy at the Pulse, the terrorist.
Well, I tell you, you could not be more supportive of the Second Amendment than I am. You know, I'm a career law enforcement
But
officer.
you gotta be smart about it.
Well, I'll tell you, you have to be informed, you have to attend training, and guns are clearly not for everybody, but for those individuals who want to carry a firearm, I encourage it. If I was not a law enforcement officer, I would be a concealed carrier everywhere that the law allows me to carry. As far as open carry, the reason why I am not a fan of open carry is I think it puts an individual at a strategic disadvantage
Right.
to show a potential bad person what they're armed with. I think that if your weapon is concealed, you are not an immediate threat to a bad person, and you have a better advantage, a better tactical advantage to respond to defend yourself or to preserve somebody else's life in doing that.
And of course, we had the controversy of George Zimmerman in Sanford
Right.
with the concealed weapon and
Right.
what happened there. In closing, tell us what you feel your top priority would be as, you're sheriff-elect now, you take office officially in January. What is the overall number one goal or priority for you moving forward?
Well, I think that the number one priority is now and will continue to be, enhancing the quality of life, all at the same time by reducing crime as well as the fear of crime. And I think that the fear of crime is something that we are influenced by daily. I mean, we watch in the media and we see these horrific acts that occur either locally or on the national stage. And some people fear those things.
There are people that say that no matter what you do, there's always going to be reactive situations as opposed to what you're talking about, proactive. How much of the job do you see as being proactive to stop some of the reactive?
Well, I tell you,
If that makes any sense.
It makes complete sense because we invest as much time being proactive as we do being reactive. It's one of the reasons why Sheriff Esslinger and our administrative team made the decision more than 16 years ago to take over Child Protective Services. It's one of the reasons why we partner with the Seminole County School Board, great partners and great school board, to replace the civilian school board member that was the director of school security with a sheriff's office captain. It's one of the reasons why we created a Focus on Safety program, which allowed for a deputy sheriff or police officer to be on every Seminole County campus. We feel that these partnerships and the investment that we make today really benefits us 10 or 15 years from now. It's investing on the front end, whether it's the folks who are being incarcerated and ultimately released or those youth that are coming up. We feel like it's our responsibility to change behavior, and you don't do that by chasing bad guys around the community alone. Bad guys need to go to jail, and they need to go to jail quickly, but we need to make an investment right now to truly be proactive. And my ultimate goal is to maintain the standards that our citizens have become accustomed to remain proactive, to determine what lingers around the corner tomorrow and be prepared for it.
For the reactive.
And then ultimately prepare others where the organization succeeds, hopefully in many, many years when I decide to retire, that whoever comes behind me has the opportunity to do it better than me with even a greater team than what we have already.
Well, it sounds like a lot of good things are in the works for Seminole County Sheriff-elect Dennis Lemma. Good luck, congratulations,
Thank you.
And Godspeed. This is Henry Frederick of Headline Surfer. And this video segment is for the Sunday Conversation, and we want to thank you and the Seminole County Sheriff's Office and your PIO staff for allowing us to have this time with you.
Thank you so much for coming down. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. That okay for closing?